Chapter 15. After the remains had been disposed of, somberly laid to rest in a nearby dumpster, Darla called a meeting in our billboard bunker. "We are all saddened by this tragedy," she said, "but there are practical issues that must be settled without delay." "I can see only one course of action," said Sunny. "Robin must do the honorable thing and marry Phoebe." Darla gasped. "I don't think that will be necessary, Sunny. We can all help provide for Phoebe and her chicks. No one proposes to abandon them." "Robin brought the falcon here," insisted the parakeet. "He's responsible for Wallace getting eaten. He has to marry Phoebe." "That's ridiculous," said Honky. "Robin can't marry Phoebe. She's a pigeon. Anyway, Wallace was only partially eaten. Norris stopped when we told him who it was." "Sonny's right," I said. "It's my fault Wallace died. I must do the proper thing. I must abandon all my hopes and dreams and marry Phoebe and live in a non-smoking trailer with 2 growing chicks that require constant nourishment." "What a bother," said Blanche. "All this killing and eating and marrying business. Life was simpler in a cage." "I don't regret it," said Julie softly. "I loved Wallace, and now he's dead, but I'll forever cherish the few days we had together." "She's right," said Darla. "We can't live with our emotions locked away in a cage." "Emotions exist to provide alibis for inexcusable behavior," said Sunny. "Robin must marry Phoebe, and the sooner the better." "Why don't you marry her, little bird?" suggested Honky. Sunny shuddered. "I couldn't possibly. Mr. Jerriger says I am a very difficult case. Besides, she's a pigeon. Birds of my station do not mate with pigeons." "Who's there?" asked the falcon. "It's me, Robin." "Hi, Robin. Sorry again about the misunderstanding with your pal. I've decided I'm never going to eat another pigeon, or seagull for that matter. I've apologized to your young friend Kinney. He was very understanding considering the circumstances. From now on, it's only cats for me." "I appreciate your dietary sacrifices, Norris. But one thing, Wallace wasn't a pigeon. He was a person." "That's odd. He tasted very much like pigeon, except for his cinderish lungs, rubbery liver, and overall smoky tang. I fear your pal was not in the best of health." "Don't be silly, Norris. We're all in the prime of life. And how's Maltese?" Norris edged closer to his metallic inamorata, wedged against the steel billboard beam. "I think she's warming up to me, Robin. I just wish we could get her out of this rigid cocoon." "I'm sure she's fine, Norris. It's probably helping keep her warm." "It is a nippy night. Say, that chatty parakeet tells me you're getting hitched." "I might be. Darla and Blanche have gone to discuss matters with Wallace's widow." "Marriage, huh? That's a big step." "I know. I thought of Marianne, somewhere out there in the vast expanse of twinkling lights. Would she be devastated if I renounced our love to wed another?" "Do you think Maltese might marry me someday?" "I don't know, Norris. I wouldn't get your hopes up." "Why?" he asked indignantly. "What's wrong with me?" "Nothing, Norris. You're a magnificent bird. It's just that, well, Maltese may not be interested in marriage." "I know. She's not much of a communicator. Still, she's quite attractive in a reserved sort of way. I'd like to thank you, Robin, for bringing us together. It means a lot to me. Oh, it was nothing, Norris. Do you mean to say there are no other falcons in the city? None that I've come across, Robin. I can't understand if it's I can't understand it either. With this city's bountiful pigeon supply, you'd think it'd be swarming with attractive, well-fed falcons. Okay, Mr. Norris, called Kinney, flying down to join us. Let's go. Where are you two off to? I asked. We're going on a sherry run, replied Kinney. I'm grabbing the small bottles, and Mr. Norris is going for the big ones. Well, be careful, I said. And how about bringing back a bag of fried pork rinds? I hear they're quite tasty. You got it, Robin. We had a wonderful wake for Wallace, at least the parts that I recall. The wine flowed like bathwater. Great quantities of crispy pork rind were crunched through, and late in the evening a few tipsy revelers were brave enough to sample some freshly caught cats. Not bad if you don't mind picking out the furry bits. Petey has mastered the butane lighter, Kinney swiped, and is able to light cigarettes at will from the carton of Carltons provided by Norris. What a relief not to have to raid pedestrians down on the street whenever one craves a smoke, especially since the extensive newspaper coverage has all but eliminated the element of surprise. I was happy to see that the theft of the Maltese falcon was major front page news in this morning's Chronicle. I expect Mr. Spade is already following up on this hot new lead, assuming he reads the paper. I only hope he was not out on a bender last night like us and skipped the morning news because of a splitting headache. I should note my throbbing head did not prevent me from paying close attention as Honky read the sensational accounts. Joel Cairo, I'm happy to report, is in the hospital in serious but stable condition with multiple injuries. I was sorry to hear that Dr. Milbreen has been slapped with several more burdensome lawsuits. Alarmed that the liquor store raids have escalated to involve larger birds, the mayor is convening an emergency meeting of the Board of Supervisors, whatever that is. I cannot believe this hullabaloo could escape the attention of Mr. Spade, however preoccupied he may be with Bridget's disquieting absence. After breakfast, Norris and Kinney wrenched Phoebe's mobile home from its wharfside pole, carried it back here with the occupants inside, and deposited it on top of the billboard machinery box. We are all to take turns fetching food for little Wallace Jr. and baby Inya, while Phoebe decides which of us is to be her chosen second husband. Already, Petey and Honky are cheating by trying to appear even less like marriage material than usual. I just had to upbraid Honky for exaggerating his limp, which he denied doing. Perhaps owing to grief, Wallace's widow is in the midst of the worst molt I've ever seen. The bird is practically naked. I'm trying to be pleasant to Phoebe, but I wish she wouldn't cut Julie dead like that. It's not Julie's fault. They both love the same fellow. Anyway, Julie is a person, and she saw him first. We've been stuffing food down the gaping mouths of Phoebe's pigeon babies like there's no tomorrow, yet they still chirp for more. Pink, squalling, and remarkably ugly, they bristle with damp, half-formed feathers, not at all like the placid, tidy infant Mrs. Milbreen sometimes brought to the lab. While I was keeping a sharp lookout on the roof for Sam Spade, Mr. Jerriger strolled out on a rest break from his afternoon session with Sonny. How's the patient? I asked.
A most interesting case, Robin. A most interesting case.
Petey's taking bets on which sex Sunny turns out to be.
Yes, I heard that.
Come to any tentative conclusions? I asked.
These things take time, Robin. A hasty determination could be extremely traumatic if proven ultimately in error. I fear the therapist and patient are both a little at sea on the issues of parakeet sex and mating.
It's a bit of a mystery for me, too, I confided. Mating, I mean. I had intended to bring the matter up with Wallace. He had some experience in that area, at least with pigeons.
Yes, he could have been a valuable resource. We do have Sonny's candid descriptions of Francesca's hectic love life, but I'm not sure how much is applicable to parakeets, or to ordinary humans for that matter.
Kenny and Norris aren't much help either.
No, your falcon seems to have formed an obsessive attachment to a lump of painted metal. Of course, large birds are not known for their intellectual depths.
He's lonely, Mr. Geriger. It's hard to have a romantic life when you're a falcon.
Yes, looking about the city's bird population, I'd have to conclude that pigeons were the most successful breeders.
Sometimes, Mr. Geriger, I almost wish I was a pigeon. Is that cause for concern?
Not necessarily, Robin. It could be a very healthy sign, a most positive sign.
Julie has shocked us all. Feeling unwell after dinner, she went inside to take a rest, felt a sharp twitch, and laid an egg. Darla and Blanche had to scramble to improvise a nest from old killer pigeon news clippings before the egg caught a chill. Now Julie's sitting on it in a state of bewildered happiness. Thus, as Petey points out, Wallace continues to burden us with his posthumous progeny. I'm no expert, but that egg of Julie's seems dauntingly large. Passing such an object must require a sizable aperture in one's anatomy. I only hope Julie's internal organs are well tethered. One bad sneeze, and it seems like she could eject a kidney or two. More unsettling news, Darla has imposed an indoor smoking ban for the duration of Julie's expectancy. So this evening, all the men, plus Sonny, rendezvoused at the Great Pyramid for some vital strategic planning. Before leaving, I loaded up Norris with the butane lighter, a pack of Carlton tunes, and the leftover sherry. Along the way, Kenny stopped to pick up a halibut for him and a fresh bag of fried pork rinds.
Hey, this is all right,
exclaimed Norris, floating his great bulk on the warmly sensual mechanical wind.
I'll have to bring Maltese here. I'm sure she'd love
it. Sonny snickered from underneath a large pork rind it was eating.
Did I say something amusing?
Inquired the falcon. These pork rinds are certainly delicious, I interjected hastily. I'm glad I don't have an addictive personality. I could get hooked on them for sure. The reckless parakeet snickered again.
Love is not only blind,
commented Sonny.
It's actively delusional.
What's that supposed to mean?
Boomed Norris. Kenny looked up warily from his halibut dismemberment. Honky and Petey stopped puffing on their cigarettes and edged away toward the other side of the grate. I glanced entreatingly toward Mr. Geriger, who shrugged his shoulders in dismay. Norris, Sonny's just a little on edge, that's all, I said. It's feeling anxious because I'm about to divulge what sex it is. Sonny peered out from beneath the half-eaten chip.
You are? Well, don't keep me in suspense, Robin. What the hell am I?
I'd be happy to inform you, Sonny, I said. But first, you must promise me you'll show a little discretion in certain controversial areas.
Oh, all right. No, shut up about that. Ignorance is not only bliss, it can be a genuinely rewarding lifestyle. Just tell me, Rob, am I a guy? No, Sonny, I said. You're a gal. Is that right, Mr. Sheridan? She demanded. I would have to agree with that conclusion, although how Robin came to it, I do not know. Wow, I'm a woman, exclaimed Sonny. I can lay eggs. I can have children. I can torment vulnerable men. Speaking of which, Mr. Zerger, do you have a date for this evening? I suppose I do now, he replied glumly.
Damn, said Honky. I owe p06 cigarettes. I knew Sonny was a female, replied Petey. No guy in his right mind would have said what she was about to say.
That was my reasoning exactly, I replied.
Hey, I've got an idea, said Norris.
Why don't I go pick up Maltese, and we can make it a double date?
Oh, I don't think so, Nori, honey, said Sonny.
Why not?
Francesca and I have a strict rule, explained the parakeet. Nothing heavy on the first date.
Chapter 16. We had a surprise visitor this morning before breakfast. A trap door in the gravel roof sprang open, and out bustled the pigeon chow lady, carrying a large plastic shopping bag and looking worried.
Flee, my darling birds, she shouted. You must flee this very morn. The city has made a dreadful decision. Our protests have fallen on deaf ears. You are to be trapped and euthanized.
Hey, Petey,
said Honky sleepily.
What's euthanized mean?
Euthanized, repeated Petey. Yes, I'm familiar with the word. Alas, its meaning temporarily eludes me.
I've been observing your movements,
our benefactress continued, removing a fresh package of hygienic pigeon chow from her bag and pouring a generous helping into a metal tin.
I think the police have been watching you too. Oh, there's the peregrine falcon. How glorious! Such a noble bird! I think it's marvelous that you've all become friends. I know you're comfortable here, but it's not safe. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. Here's some nice breakfast for you, but after you've eaten, you really must leave. No time to waste. I'll be going now because I know some of you may be shy. Stay well, my darlings. Come to me if you need help. I'm in the square most every day. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Waving and blowing kisses, she clambered back down the steep stairs and pulled the trapdoor closed. Pigeon chow, anyone? I called.
Oh, I suppose so, said Petey. But what I'd really like is some crispy bacon. Well, maybe a succulent cat spleen.
All the seed eaters, except Julie, nest-bound on her egg, gathered at the tin and began to peck at the hygienic meal. Wherever shall we go? Asked Darla. I hate to leave this commodious home. We'll find someplace nicer, said Blanche. Something with less dirt and not so much greasy machinery. We're not going anywhere, I declared. Oh, but Robin, we must, protested Darla. You heard what the woman said. They're coming to trap us. We have to stay here, I insisted, at least until Sam Spade finds us.
Darla's right, Honky. Darla's right, said Honky. It's too dangerous. Mr. Spade will just have to find us in our new location.
I agree that relocating is the wisest course, said Mr. Gerriger. Of course we must move, Bud, honey, said Sonny, busily dehusking a seed. Moving replaces the tedium of the familiar with the unfolding humdrum of the novel. Anyway, I don't intend to spend my first full day as a ripe young female, dodging traps and ducking policemen. Gee, I hope I don't develop any pigeon-like characteristics from eating this stuff.
It could only be an improvement, commented Phoebe. Dirty looks were exchanged. But how will we move Julie and her egg? I protested.
Well, there's an unused room in the trailer, said Darla. Julie can move in with Phoebe. No way, snapped Phoebe. I'm not sharing my roof with that slut. It will only be for the move, Phoebe dear, said Darla. Just to transport you all safely. I hope, Norris, you're feeling strong this morning.
Tremendously strong, the Falcon replied, and perhaps a change of scene will help bring Maltese out of her shell.
If that doesn't work, Norrie, sweetie, said Sunny, you can always try a 90-ton hydraulic press. Oh, I know the perfect spot to move to. You'll all love it. It's south of the slot where the true bohemians live.
Sunny's choice for our new home was surprisingly sensible and most appropriate. She led us south of Market to a district of low plain buildings clearly constructed for utilitarian purposes. At the corner of one such building rose a tall concrete tower, upon which an immense sign flashed a message of cordial hospitality across the city. As hundreds of multicolored bulbs illuminated in turn, one saw a familiar-looking brown bottle tip slowly forward. Then an amber liquid flowed from its spout into a round glass. Above and below this animated image, more bulbs illuminated in sequence to spell out, as if being written letter by letter in yellow light, "Enjoy the golden rush. Drink Gold Rush Sherry." Perhaps to keep out stray pigeons, all openings in the painted sheet metal sign were obstructed by weavings of stout wire. These Norris quickly plucked out with his mighty talons. Into one of the larger openings, he and Kinney pushed the trailer aft first, positioning it safely out of the weather, while still affording an excellent view of the city's skyline to its feuding occupants. As Maltese was too large to fit in any of the openings, she was laboriously lodged against a support strut on top of the sign. The narrow interior of the sign was a maze of dark metal catacombs, lined with wires and nicely warmed by heat radiating from the bulb sockets. Here and there, small devices, identified by Petey as electrical relays, clicked away like lazy crickets as they operated the lights.
"I don't know about all these wires,"
said Honky, limping nervously along a passageway.
"Oh, I think they're safe enough," said Petey. "Just don't gnaw on them." "I wasn't planning to," replied Honky.
It's so spacious, exclaimed Darla. We can have a nursery for Julie, and food storage rooms, and a place for you boys to smoke, and Sonny and Mr. Jerriger can have their own private apartment, and so can Phoebe, and whomever she chooses to be with.
I coughed. It appears fairly well defensible, too, I said. I just hope Mr. Spade can find his way up here. He'd need a tremendously long ladder.
Oh, I wouldn't worry about that, Robin, said Darla. I'm sure your Mr. Spade can fly.
Right, I conceded. He probably can, come to think of it. To our disappointment, an extensive search of the vicinity failed to turn up any evidence of sherry manufacturing, bottling, or dispensing. Surveying the building's window-lined central courtyard, we saw only oddly dressed people daubing oily colors onto flat cloth panels or manipulating
viscous earth into lumpy brown shapes. No one appeared to be drinking sherry either, although a few, I was relieved to see, were smoking avidly.
Must be those bohemians that Sonny was talking about,
commented Hunky, coming in for a lopsided, good leg first landing beside me on a sunny ledge.
a rough-looking bunch.
Said Petey, fluttering down in his usual falling meteorite style.
Fortunately, they don't seem at all interested in us.
The dumpsters out back look promising, I reported. Lots of pizza boxes and garlicky Chinese takeout containers. We'll have to scout out the neighborhood for liquor stores to raid. We need to lay in supplies for Petey's wedding. Yes, Phoebe has announced her surprise choice,
Up yours.
replied the despondent groom-to-be.
That reminds me, Robin,
Said Hunky.
Darla asked me to ask you if we could lay off the plundering for a while.
Why? I demanded.
Well, she seems to think the raids are antagonizing the authorities. You know, that trapping and euthanizing business.
We must smoke and drink, men, I replied. We owe it to Dr. Milbreen to continue the regimen he imposed. Science demands it,
Yeah, that's what I told her.
said Honky.
She thought maybe we could start up our bar act again.
Can you mambo on an artificial leg? I asked.
I could try.
Said Honky.
And should we be captured or killed in the attempt,
Said Petey.
at least I won't have to choose between the Scylla and Charbidus of fiancés.
Yes, Blanche, too, has staked a surprise matrimonial claim on her pal. Some guys have all the luck. The neighborhood bars, although numerous, proved discouragingly inhospitable to mamboing refreshment seekers. In some, the music was so loud we developed an acute weakness in the knees and had to leave immediately. In others, oddly dressed bohemian men seemed more interested in dancing with themselves than watching us perform. Then there was the dimly lit bar where we were nearly trampled by energetic bohemian women in brawny leather boots. Despite our continued sobriety, we are feeling pretty good about ourselves. Yesterday, we saved a man's life. It happened while we were out patrolling for smokes along the waterfront near a place called Pier 39. We saw a man, possibly a poet, trying to commit suicide by thrusting a long sword down his beak. This was after we had watched, transfixed, as the deranged sonneteer proceeded to light and eat several cigarettes. None of the callous onlookers gathered around him was making the slightest effort to prevent this senseless tragedy. Of course, we had to act. Mr. Geriger cried, "Good God, man, don't do it!" remembering to add, "Support equal rights for budgies." Sonny shouted, "You must live to rhyme again," adding, "Shop wisely, look for the designer label." Petey and I dive-bombed his head. Kenny dropped a half-eaten halibut down his shirt, and Norris bravely hurled himself against the back of his knees. The despondent poet dropped, struggling, to the pavement. Several onlookers rushed to his aid. After heroic effort, they were able to extract the sword with only minimal shedding of blood. Then the police and ambulances came, and we had to leave quickly. No one bothered to thank us, but that's not much of a surprise. We're becoming inured to the callous ways of the city. More negative publicity, sighed Julie, reading the morning paper while seated on her egg. What's the headline? Asked Darla. Killer pigeons attack street performer,
she replied. The subhead goes on. Officials decry alarming mayhem from sky. People are idiots, said Petey, smoking one of the last of our Carltons. We saved that man's life. These outrages must stop, declared Blanche. After we are married, all smoking and drinking must cease. That goes double for me, added Phoebe. Petey glanced despairingly at me and passed the butt to Honky, who inhaled greedily. Did the article mention me? Asked Sunny. Doesn't seem to, replied Julie, reading. Just the killer pigeons and a marauding seagull and falcon. Little birds never get any respect, complained Sunny. It's so unfair. I respect you, Sunny, said Mr. Gerger. That is all too evident, Bud, honey, she replied. I'm still waiting to rebuff your first course advance. Francesca would already have slapped you silly. She is hardly the ideal role model for you, he replied. Evidently not, said Sunny. I expect you'd prefer that I'd emulate the coolly dispassionate Maltese. I never said that. There is only one universal tongue, noted Sunny, the articulate language of the unsaid. Robin, have you seen this passageway? Asked Darla. I don't think so, I replied, following her up through the intricate twists and turns of the sherry sign. It's my favorite. There are no noisy relays. The wires are all neatly overhead. And see, there are these nice holes you can look through. You can see nearly the entire skyline of downtown. I peered out through one of the small holes, evidently drilled to afford access to an inner mounting bolt. Nice view, Darla, I said. Kind of drafty, though. But not that bad, Robin. We could stuff some paper over the openings on chilly days. I think this would make a splendid apartment. Very nice, I agreed. We're fortunate Sunny knew about this sign. It's so much better than the billboard, Robin. And from here, it's just a short hop up to one of the roof openings, so it wouldn't be any trouble bringing in nest materials. You're right, Darla. We're near the top of the sign. I can hear Norris up there schmoozing with Maltese. Robin, I never told you this, but I think you were extremely brave to go out alone and make contact with that falcon. You could easily have been killed. Well, I knew we needed the lifting power of the biggest bird in the city. He's turned out to be a good friend. A wonderful friend, Robin. We're lucky to know him. And Kinney, too, of course. Kinney's a pip. Yes, and now it looks like Petey's going to be settling down. Does it? I asked. Yes, and Julie told me, confidentially, of course, that she finds your friend Honky not unattractive. That's so, Darla? Well, they're both literary. Right. So, I was wondering, Robin, if you've ever thought of getting settled. How so? Domestically, for example? Well, I've never told anybody about this, Darla, but I'm in love. I have been for some time. Really, Robin? Yes, Darla, deeply in love. Oh, Robin, this is more than I dared hope for. Yes, I love Marianne. What? You know, Marianne, from the lab. Used to read to us? She's the one who told us about Mr. Spade. Oh, right, that person. That's another reason why we have to get back to Berkeley without delay. I miss her terribly.
Oh, yes, well, these things take time, I suppose.
Darla, what's that sound?
I heard it too, Robin. What was it?
Something scraped against the outside of the sign.
Robin! Screeched Norris overhead. Maltese is in danger! Come quick!
I peered out through one of the holes in the sign. The view of downtown was now interrupted by a net of finely woven rope.